Hey guys, welcome to Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. Yet another interesting and outstanding guest on the podcast today. So, we're going to talk to Maria. Maria is a shaman. She is a practitioner of yoga. She is a poet, and she has traveled a very interesting path to get to where she's at. A lot of difficult things that she faced in her childhood, a lot of difficult things she faced in her adulthood, and she persevered. Uh, and I'm not going to ruin it by telling you the things that she faced, but her story is super captivating, and she has just such a positive energy about her. She is just a fun person to interact with and have onto the program. We're very lucky to have her on. So, without any further ado, let's bring her onto the channel right now. All right. So, Maria, thank you so much for coming on the Salty Ginger Talk. We're really happy to have you here.
Hi, Joe. It's so wonderful to be here. I like talking to a feisty ginger.
You've come to the right spot. That's definitely on the menu here at Salty Ginger Talk, for sure. Yeah, look, Maria and I had a great conversation several weeks ago, and she's a super interesting lady, and she is going to talk about things that I would never talk about on my own, which I think is awesome. And it's one of the things we try to do on Salty Ginger Talk is we tell everyone, open your minds, expand your minds a little bit, listen to people who think differently than you, who have different ideas than you. You can learn so much if you do that in a non-judgmental way, and that's what we want to do on the podcast. So I've been very excited about bringing Maria on because look, we're very compatible. We've had great conversations, but I bet we approach the world in very different ways. And I think it's a good lesson for all the listeners that you don't have to surround yourself with people that are like you. And in fact, your life gets bigger and richer and better when you have a diverse group of people around you that you can count on. I think this will be a good example of that. So, with all that said, Maria, tell us just a little bit about your background and where you came from, et cetera, et cetera. And then we'll
Mm,
jump into all the cool stuff you've got going on now.
okay. Well, I'm a girl from New Jersey. So I always say you can't take, the Jersey out of the girl. I've moved all over the place. I'm from an Italian, Puerto Rican, Venezuelan family. We have a mixed family. I'm a middle child. I am highly sensitive to energy, and I've always known that I'm different. And so roll that into going through a lot of trauma and overcoming addiction and abuse and taking all of these things and really learning the vehicle of Maria and how I am to be in this world. And so that's been my adventure. I'm a Sagittarius. I'm very astrologically based. That's the language I speak. And yeah, I live my life now as a shamanic healer and a poet. So I do a lot of channeling of spirit. I listen and I communicate. So it's yeah, I love the intro, how you introduced me, because most people will say, "Wow, you're interesting," and I'm like, "Thank you, thank you." I try my best to be that way. No, I just really just try to be myself, and it took me a very long time to figure that out. I was very uncomfortable in my own skin, really for the first like 40 years of my life.
Mm.
So it's just all been a coming to, and really just to my own heart. And I feel like our hearts are our biggest tools. And so, in order to be around different people, I feel like we all just need to be in our hearts, speak your truth, be who you are. And I feel like that's a huge part of it. So,
Yeah, I love that. And so, just so you know, Maria, one of the things I do on the podcast regularly is we talk about themes on our own. And then it's very interesting, almost all of our guests, and we have such a wide variety of guests, very eclectic group, people that come at things from very different ways, but we hear a lot of commonalities. And one of the
mm,
things you talked about that I just want to call out to the audience is authenticity. And,
mm,
that's one of the things I appreciated about when my conversation with Maria is I never felt for a second like she was trying to act or be a certain way, other than just who she is. And there's a lesson to be learned there. And she's willing, which is what we appreciate, to talk about some of the really shitty stuff she went through. And then we'll get to all the good stuff she's got going on now. But you got to understand this took a while to get to where she's at. And it's not easy sometimes being yourself. I'm an anomaly. Like Maria said, she always knew she was different. I always knew I was different too. I tell people I was born without the give a fuck gene. Like, I just don't give a fuck. Like, you can like me, you can not like me, that's okay. But I am who I am. Now I've learned to deliver that in ways that are acceptable. I'm always going to tell people the truth, but there's a way to tell people the truth that is constructive and not destructive. So I've learned how to do that over the years. But um, the authenticity, she called that out really early on. I think it's terribly, terribly important to keep in mind all the time. But as we go through this conversation, because you're going to see that her life changed quite a bit from where she was to where she is now. And she's in a great spot now and loves who she is and how she is. And we get to talk about all that with her. So, with that said, let's start with some of the shitty stuff. You talked about.
Okay.
We'll end on the high note and talk about all the good stuff. But you talked
Yeah.
about going through some really crappy stuff earlier in your life. You battled addiction, some abuse, both physical, sexual, to the extent without giving a bunch of details and all that. But talk a little bit about what that was, what you went through, and what that was like for you while you were going through it, when it was really hard to go through.
Well, I feel like I want to touch on just I want to answer to like my little to what you said
Sure,
about
go ahead.
not
Where's
give a
yours?
fuck. I am like the other side of that. I'm like, is everything okay? Like I was suffering from people pleasing. And how do
Hmm,
I fit? And where do I fit? And is this okay? And is that okay? And that completely clouded who I am. It wasn't
sure.
allowing me to just be me because I was like utterly terrified of life. I mean, I was sexually abused as a child by babysitters that I stuffed and wasn't able to articulate until I was, 40 years old, um, which spawned my spiritual awakening. But that's another part of the story. The beginning was just being in a really loud, chaotic, dysfunctional home. And for somebody like me who's sensitive, it felt like being an egg in a jar that was constantly being shook. And I'm light and sound sensitive. All these years later, I know that I'm neurodivergent and I'm on the spectrum, but nobody knew that for me growing up because I was able to copy and assimilate and I did well in school and I had friends and I could function. Um, I danced. I'm a trained dancer, so that was a huge part of my life in the beginning. It was a lot of like, everything looks great on the outside, but on the inside, it was a shit show. And
Hmm,
so it was just like, I say a lot of the things that I've been through turned down a lot of my sensory gifts. And when I found alcohol at 15, that was like my solution. And I learned how to do everything totally drunk, leading to up until like adulthood when I went through a divorce. I put myself into triathlon training. So I've done 3 triathlons, but my first one, I trained drunk, which is crazy. I don't recommend that for anybody, but I did it. I was running drunk. I was swimming drunk. I was riding a bike drunk. I was so out of control that people who were really close to me were like, "We're really worried about you." And I was like, "What are you talking about? I'm great."
hmm.
I also suffered from an eating disorder for most of my life. That was quite detrimental to me. And, being in the dance industry, I wanted to be a professional. That was a huge pressure of looking a certain way and being a certain way. So all of these things I feel like really fed into the crumbling of my own spirit, and not allowing my own like soul to come through. I was just covering and hiding and nowadays it's the complete opposite, and I think about being altered in any which way, it makes me so uncomfortable. And that is literally the complete 180 of how I wanted and did live my life. I was like always looking for an escape out of here. And now I just want to stay here and share myself and, just live a peaceful life. Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you were like hiding in plain sight because
Hmm.
you adapted to the environment that you were in, even if it was not a good environment for you. And then you found alcohol, and that was like, oh fuck, this is an escape. I don't have to feel the way I feel when I use
Hmm.
alcohol. And
Yeah.
so, just on the triathlons, were these full triathlons, the full 2.2 mile swim, the marathon, and
A quarter mile. No, not like a full on. Like it's a quarter mile swim, it's a 13-mile bike and a 5K, which is like
Yeah.
3.2 miles. So
Nice.
I've done three of them as an adult. I've always been a mover and a shaker. That is somebody, and that's what I bring into my practice. I am a sound healer. I use my own voice and instruments, and I've always just really resonated with sound and with movement. And so that is something that brings a lot of joy to me.
Mm,
Um, yeah, that's a huge, huge part of my life. So I'm really grateful that I've always had outlets because, I think in hindsight, looking back at all this, I am very empathic. I pick up on a lot of things. I am a psychic, I am a channel. Those things were very, I couldn't talk about them growing up. I certainly couldn't articulate them. And it was such a level of intensity of feeling that I wanted to like just turn the volume down on me. And really, like, from your own experiences, when we add alcohol to things, oh boy, that is like, it is so detrimental to your well-being. So it was really doing the opposite. But for a while, it was a solution until it wasn't anymore,
mm.
until like my life started to really fall apart. Um, and that was like in my late 20s, early 30s when I decided to leave my marriage. I have two boys. I'm a mother. And that was, I swallowed the belief of like, get married and have kids. That's going to be like the best thing ever. And it wasn't for me. It was really disappointing for me. And I don't say that to like hurt my ex-husband's feelings or my children's feelings, but I was so lost within me that I needed to escape from that and figure out me. And so, it was kind of like living. I feel like a lot of my life has been lived in all of these like different cycles, like just not really, I guess, in their typical order. I am, and that's really the cycle of healing. The cycle of healing is not linear, it's cyclical. And so I made choices, I think, early on in my life, really to escape my family, to escape to escape what was going on. I just really was like, I need to have a whole different life. And, I met somebody who I really loved, and I value my ex-husband, but I kind of knew early on in that marriage that we were not going to last. But I wanted to make it work. And so I stayed as long as I could. And I was a stay-at-home mom for 12 years. And I have two beautiful sons, and they're now grown adults, which is crazy. But yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of life experience within these 47 years on this planet. So I have a lot to draw from, which is what I write about.
Yeah. When you were so when you were young, you talked
Mm.
about being an empath. You talked about
Hmm.
being I'm trying to remember the terms that you use. I think I'm
Well,
confusing
psychic,
terms.
intuitive, just greatly intuitive. I'm
Okay.
highly
Yep.
intuitive.
Did
Yeah.
you know what that was when it was happening, or was it just like
Oh
feelings
no.
and emotions that confused you?
Oh yeah, no, it was very confusing because I think a lot of the empath's journey for people like me, we feel like in order to fix people around us, because we know we're healers, maybe, we think like, oh, well, if I can just carry your pain, if I can, because like we very greatly feel other people. And so
Mm,
it was very confusing. It was like, like my mother, for instance, I'd be like, I can feel her and understand her so well. And then thinking that that's me when it wasn't. It was very, very confusing, very confusing. And for me too, I see spirits. So I see angels, I see colors. And those were things I could not talk to people about. I was not going to talk about those things because just the environment I was in, it was not something that I was ever going to voice. I
and
just
that's
think
something
that,
that your
yeah.
whole life it's been like that, even as a little girl that you saw
Oh,
spirit, you saw angels.
especially as a child. So,
Really?
children until you're 7 years old, I mean, children come in so wide awake, and then the world starts to condition them.
Mm,
And that's actually scientifically proven in the brain. Things neurocognitively really start to switch. But yeah, as a young child, I mean, gosh, my sister and I were so imaginative, and that's really where your intuition is grown from, is your imagination, and now there's a lot of science coming out about what you believe is what you are. So dream big. Like we always keep telling people, like, dream big, and then you get to a point where
Mm.
it's like, oh no, stop your dreaming. So it's like very like, you don't know which way to go. But yeah, as a child, I would totally play very imaginative games, and I've always been a writer. I've always had a pen, a pencil, a crayon in my hand, and writing things. And I told my mom, I want to be a writer. And I remember doing a book like in a summer camp, and I was so proud of this book that I made. And like all, that's what I've realized. I've made that come true. Yeah.
And you had dance, you had writing, so clearly
hmm
any
hmm
creative
hmm
outlet has always been very attractive to you, even from a young age.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am very much an artist in a lot of ways, I need to be creating something. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I'm not your, sit behind a computer 9 to 5. Like I need to be around people. I love people. So there's always been a draw to be, and that's part of just my own makeup. I'm a caregiver. I'm a nurturer. I adore people. Um, I love animals. Like I'm just like I'm a very sensitive person. So
Mm.
I'm aware of like my deep connection to everything around me. And I just think that for most of my life, it was very jarring. I didn't always understand why I was feeling sick, I felt overwhelmed. I call them now like over sensory episodes. If I become overly sensitized, it will throw me into an episode. So I know now how to manage that through a lot of the healing modalities that I practice. But it took me some time. It took me learning the word no. Being a people pleaser, I wanted to be like yes, yes, yes to everything. But nowadays it's like if it doesn't feel right for me, I don't put myself there.
Mm.
So it was a lot of learning to trust myself. It was a lot of learning to believe in myself, accepting myself. I mean, that's the self-love journey. That is what has completely revolutionized my life, is learning to love myself because I had no self-esteem. I yeah, I was hiding in plain sight. That's a great way to put it. I wanted to blend in with the walls, even though it was like obvious I wasn't going to blend in anywhere because as soon as I start talking and it was like, this girl's different.
Yeah.
And now I value that about myself. I'm like, I love that I'm unique, and I really encourage other people to be their unique selves because that's what this world needs. Going back to authenticity, like I will jive with people who are their authentic selves, like you said. Like you're just like, this is who I am, take it or leave it. And if you don't like it, keep it moving. And I mean I think it just takes an ability, a desire to want to listen to each other. Let's just listen to each other. And I think that's something that I've always been able to do, being empathic and being in tune with other people. Um, a lot of people tell me, I just feel safe around you. I just feel like I can tell you anything. And I'm like, okay. And that's something that, I mean, that's been a constant throughout my whole life, people coming up and needing to tell me things. And it's like, I value that, I really love being that release for somebody because I can. That is also a part of my practices is holding space for people. Like shamans, what we do is we walk beside people and help them see their own light. And you heal yourself. I'm just going to encourage you to do that and be there along the way. And so I do a lot of listening. I mean, I think these are like basic skills that people have forgotten.
Mm. So you've got all these innate qualities. You've had them
Mm,
since you were born. You wind up
yeah.
married with two kids. You talked about struggling with alcohol. What that had to be very
Hmm.
difficult with all of those things going on to make the decision that you needed to make a change. How did you, at that point in your life, how did you decide it was time to make a change, and what steps did you take to make that change?
Well, it was a very disastrous decision. I
Mm,
I tried to take my own life. That was
mm,
that was my bottom. My bottom. And then there was actually like a trap door in another bottom a few years after that. But in 2011, I tried to take my own life. And that
wow.
was a real wake-up call for me. Um, I remember being in the hospital and being like, okay, now what? Because like, shit, that didn't work.
Mm,
And being in that dark of a place and wanting to leave this earth, if I didn't have the faith that I have, I definitely wouldn't be here, and my children. I had to come to a point of, okay, if not for me, for them. They don't deserve to lose a mom. And I love my boys. I mean, they're like my greatest teachers. They're amazing people. So that was my focus for the beginning of it, was let me get well for them. And so taking your life, you end up in a mental hospital. And that was like a 10-day commitment. And then I proceeded to go in and out of that hospital for a year, inpatient, outpatient. It was actually, I don't think a lot of people say this, but my experience in the mental health field at that point where I was such a beautiful gift because I was around a lot of great support. And some of it was free. After I got out, I was able to do support groups and I just got into community. Um, and looking back at the writing I was doing during that time, that was huge because they gave me a journal. And I feel like that's a real grounding exercise when we can just write out our thoughts and feelings
mm.
and just have like a dump for them. And so that was really, really helpful. And I just continued to do that. So from 2011 to 2019 is when I had my spiritual awakening. But in between that, I fell off the wagon, developed a pretty hardcore drug addiction, um, found myself in a very destructive relationship. And it really was when I was ready to unearth the pit of my trauma, in 2019, that I found a woman who worked with me who was a shaman. And we had a session, and my life has literally not looked the same since. So I feel like all of these things kind of they played into one another. I kept on the path of I need to know more about myself. I need to heal. And I did that in many ways. Talk therapy, I went into recovery. At one point in my life, I was really into AA. I was speaking at meetings. I had sponsors and sponsees, and I did that for a while. And then I fell totally away from that. And then I came into holistic healing. I started using essential oils. I've always been somebody who loves the smells of things. And I feel like that's very orienting for somebody like me who's wanted to detach from her body. I've been dissociated, trying to jump out of here my whole life. So it was the energy healing. It was coming into a session with a shaman that connected me to a piece of my soul. And that's like the rest is like now I'm just paying it forward by
Mm.
by taking on my purpose. And I mean, so I know that her and I have spent lifetimes together, and we were supposed to meet, and she was supposed to help me awaken and remember who I am. And now I help other people remember who they are. But that is very much a belief that I have, is that, not only in this lifetime, but in other lifetimes, our entire existence of our spirit gets fractured, and that deters us from remembering who we are. And so that is I have a lot of like focuses of my writing, but I write about star seeds, I write about galactic connection, I write about nature, self-love. Like a lot of my poems are, I mean, they're channeled messages through my guides, but they have like, an added twist of my own perspective. So um, my poetry has been incredibly healing for me. And that all started to come in, like I'd say, because the blog I host, Emotional Musings, started in 2018. So when that started, um, that just got me on a roll. I feel like, I had met somebody as we do. We meet people when we're supposed to. And she was really instrumental in me starting a blog. She's like, Maria, you need to share your poetry. And I was like, okay. She said, start a blog. And I didn't know what a blog was. And I just did it. I feel like I've always just remained curious. Like I don't take no for an answer. I want more. I'm going to go there. I'm going to do this. I just, me throwing in the towel or trying to throw in the towel. It was a very clear, like, this isn't your path. Like, you're so far off your path. Come back, come back, come back. And I feel like that is really because of my connection to God. I mean, that's something that I was raised with. I was raised Catholic. So I don't necessarily, call myself Catholic now. I'm much more spiritual. I don't, believe in a lot of the things that are fed in a religious way. But I do believe in a higher power and something greater outside of myself that we are all connected to. Yeah,
Mm.
that's what's kept me going for sure. For sure.
So first, let me just say thank you so much for being candid
Yeah.
about the
Yeah.
struggles because there's a lot of people out there listening, and there may be people going through similar things that you went through. And for them to
Mm.
hear someone who's went through similar things and has built a really good life for themselves, it provides a path and some hope and some inspiration. So thank you so much for being willing to come on and talk about that. And for the listeners,
Yeah.
let's recap one of the themes we talk about a lot. Try, get feedback from
Mm.
what you try. If it doesn't deliver the result that you want, try something different. So Maria does this over and over and over again. I mean, she's in such a dark place. She tries to take her own life. She doesn't just wake up and go, "Oh, it's all better now." She talked about going in and out of the place where she got help for a year. And she kept going back. She kept trying. She tried. It didn't deliver the result she needed. She kept trying. She tried something different. That didn't deliver the result she needed. Maybe some part of it did, but she kept going. She kept trying. We talk about that all the time on the podcast. So you go through these iterations from 2011 to 2019. And I know you said you started your poetry blog in 2018, but you talked about meeting with a shaman and really kind of having your awakening, your enlightenment. I'm not sure how to refer to it, but talk a little bit about what that experience was like after you've been kind of searching for all this time. What was it like to kind of finally
Mm.
feel something click or finally feel something open up and go, there it is. This is what I've been looking for. How was that?
Yes, that is exactly it. So, a spiritual awakening is a coming to. It is, God, there's so many things that come to me that I want to share on it. It's, it was like an earthquake in my body, being as sensitive as I am, having somebody really just energetically help me align to my own self was an earthquake in my body. And then all of these things started to come to me. Just, I started to question everything and, what am I doing? And what do I believe? And is that right for me? Is this right for me? And that's what I believe everybody on the planet's going through right now. We are in a giant global awakening of a lot of things. And it's really because of the light, hitting the earth in the way it is. But that's what that is. It is seeing our darkness, which we call shadows, your boo-boos, your ouchies, the things that you try to stuff in and you don't want anyone to see. That's actually where all your medicine is. There's so much beauty in that. And when you can bring those dark spaces into the light, my gosh, that's a game changer. So I just kept doing that. I kept um, consciously looking at all of these pieces of me that I had like thrown. I said in the hospital to one of my doctors, I said, I feel like a million piece puzzle that was just dropped on the floor.
Mm.
Like, what in the heck is going on? Um, and yeah, I just, one of the transmissions through another healer that I've worked with, a message from my Nana. She had crossed to the other side at this point, and he said, "Your Nana's telling me that she's helping you push the pieces back together." And I just started bawling my eyes out. I'm like, I know she is, and I know like my dad, whenever I started to bring him up, I was going to get emotional, but he very much is also guiding me from the other side.
Mm.
And I need these really strong connections, these people that I looked up to and that loved me and I love them. I need them there because this is what I do. I'm much more connected for a lot of my life. I mean, now I've come into balance and I understand things a lot more, but I am very connected to the out there, to the higher realms, to more than just this 3D reality that most people are experiencing. So I needed that, and my dad transitioned 2 months after I became a shaman, after I took on my own, learning of this art and my gifts. And that's really what she did for me. She helped me learn and gave me a lot of tips and tools. And now that's what I do with other people. I coach them and help them come into their gifts because there's so many of us out there and there's lots of labels put on us like you're this, you're that. It's like actually you're really just a sensitive being and you've gone through a lot of trauma. So let's try to unravel a lot of that. And that's what I do. Yeah. Yeah, that was incredibly life-changing. Changed my life.
Yep. So that's awesome. I'm really glad that you got connected to someone who kind of helped you find the path that you're on now. So that's great. So let's talk about that, right? So we got all the gnarly stuff out of the way, which I appreciate again your candidness because
Mhm.
maybe you do understand, or maybe you don't understand, but that can be so helpful for someone that's out there listening that might be going through the same thing. So I just really appreciate it and appreciate you trusting us to come on and talk about it. Now, all the
Yeah.
good stuff. Let's talk about where do you want to start? You want to start being a shaman? You want to start with poetry? Do you want to start with where do you want to start?
Well, I actually want to say that the reason why, like the inception of Emotional Musings, was for me to share my story, my testimony of truth. One of my mottos is triumphing over trauma. And I want people to understand that they're not crazy, they're not alone, there's nothing wrong with them. You just got a little lost.
Mm,
You wandered away and it's okay. You can come back. We always have these opportunities to do this. Like life is actually really simple, but we tend to complicate the shit out of it. So, where do we want to start? I don't know. I mean, me in 20, so that was a beautiful thing. For me, 2020 was me learning the inner workings of the vehicle of Maria. And,
You were
I
what,
took on
40,
this.
42 at the time?
Hmm.
41,
Hmm.
42? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
So
that's
I say
that's a long road, right?
yeah, I say this is my midlife renaissance, Joe. Like people have a midlife crisis. I didn't. I had a midlife renaissance.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm now living my best life because my 20s was like confusing. My 30s was a shit show. Um, yeah, I mean, like I'm totally open about it because I want people to be like, there's always a chance. There's always more. Like always, like keep questioning, keep going. Yeah. Don't just become complacent, put your head in the sand and like you have to do the same thing all the time. No. I don't know. I've never been like that. I'm just a constant chameleon.
Yep.
So yeah, and so the writing, the books and the poetry that came, a couple years before my shamanism, and they all just marry into each other. There's a lot of poetry that comes through my sessions. It's part of what I do and who I am. So most people, like I work with people, and I usually will insert a poem that I feel is going to help them amongst me just doing a lot of toning and chanting and light language, which is a language that is of your soul. It's a combination of all the languages your soul has spoken in all of your lifetimes. I am a pioneer of that. I believe there's numbers of us, but it's not like everybody out there is speaking light language. I started, doing that 2 years ago and sharing it publicly. And I know, like my sister and like my so people are like, what are you doing? What is that? And I'm like, it's an energetic language, that is felt in your soul and it's incredibly and profoundly healing. So I feel like, healers in our own ways are using our own gifts and talents in order to help others align and adjust to who they are. So whoever is meant to find me finds me. And it's amazing the connections that I have with my clients. You know, there's a lot of commonality, a lot of synchronicities, because we've been through the same things. You know, I work with a lot of people who have the same things that have happened in their life. And it's like, I have felt it, I have done it, I have healed from it. And now let me walk beside you while you do the same. And that is my role here. That is my purpose. Like when I woke up, I said, "Oh, I need to do this. This is what I need to do." And when I first went into my own session with my teacher, I said, "Oh, I've done this before. This is all very, very familiar." And it was, yeah, like a coming home to my own self, my own heart. So being able to do this is just, it's such a gift. It's such a gift. You know, it just makes sense for me. It's like finally things made sense for me, and they hadn't made sense for 40 years. So,
Mm.
yeah, getting to do this and walk with people, is just, it's beautiful. And then the poetry part of it, I have 6 published books that I've published myself, and I have 6 books that are in manuscript form that I want to go to a publisher. I actually just got asked to include 11 of my poems into somebody else's book. We're going to be publishing that in a couple months. It's a book about star seeds. People, who feel that we come from the stars and we're here for a purpose on a mission. And I know that's probably really out there for a lot of people, but that's going to hit people. They're going to go, I can really connect to that.
Mm.
Yeah.
How long have you been writing poetry?
Well, it really was 2017, 2018. It just started coming through, and I had no
Mm.
idea that I was really channeling. I didn't really know what that was. I don't have any formal training. I mean, I've always, like I said, I loved school. I'm a smart person. I didn't finish college. I just like to write. And so the poetry just comes like, I feel the words. It's changed over the years a lot. In the beginning, I saw them in my mind's eye. I could see the words, and I just would just to transcribe them. And now I more feel the words. Some of them really are totally, you know, reiterated to me through a spirit guide, through an angel, through an ancestor, through, I work with a lot of different beings. So, yeah, it's just something that came. Not like it's not, and I don't try, I don't schedule it. It just happens. So anybody out there, like when you just do something and it's so natural for you, keep doing that. That is feeding your own self. I feel like, just keep whatever it is, cooking, painting, singing. um, Shamans, back in, ancient times when people would go and see the medicine man, the medicine person in their village, they would be asked, when was the last time you sang? And when was the last time you danced? And that is a sign of a dysfunction if you have not, because being able to hold joy in your body is a big thing. Like, why do you feel anxious? Why do you feel depressed? There's energetic reasons for that. And that those are the things that I'm able to tune into. I am a soul seer. I see and I can understand in ways that a lot of other people can't. But I do believe we all have this ability as human beings. Yeah. It's just a muscle. Your intuition is a muscle that you can build.
Mm. Well, you said you brought a poem to read on the podcast. That'd be a good time to
I
do it. If
did.
you have it there, let's
Okay.
do it.
Yeah, yeah. I wrote this last May. It's called Truth's Proclamation. The wisdom gained by a heightened sense of processing dictates the pace of ascension speed dramatically. As sounds become rhymes, the food my soul feasts upon, inquisitive lyrics fill my mind, becoming the poems from the divine. Guided by light and blinded by faith, earthly pleasures dissipate, until all I'm left with are the words to be felt, not seen, in darkly lit corridors of the in between, traversing 2 worlds from this physical reality to the higher realms, heart strumming rhythm from a place shrouded in mystery, seen as shady spiritual elms. Like the branches of these trees, I reach out desperately for the deeper meaning, All music is heard through prayers, surrendering intentionally. Silent tears fall from weary eyes, tired of seeking. Peace anointed synergy acts like an angelistic drug as ancient spirits are speaking. Release all fears and attachments, my dears. Another world awaits to match your innate skills. Embrace your heart centered will. Gather the courage to jump timelines with a quantum leap. Leave behind forever. Fully awakened soul, no longer asleep. One cannot undo the knowing. All of your true colors are alive and showing. Rejoice in love and bask in the bliss. Magical being shines through the density of an illusionary mist. One with all, resurrected by mercy and grace. Humbled servant, go forth and spread love into every space.
Thank you for sharing that. How long did that take? Like, what's the process from start to finish? I know you said the words kind of come to you and they flow through you. How does that work?
um, it's literally, I always say to people, I'm just listening. I'm just listening. They come when they're meant to. That probably took me 5 minutes, not even. It's just a channeling. I can't really quantify it because I feel like spiritual experiences have to be felt. Um, I also think that this is a part of me. This is what I'm meant to be doing. It's something that my soul chose to do, and I'm trusted and I'm given these messages and these words, and I meant to share them. Like I have a ferocious need to share them. Um, so it's yeah, I can't really, and it's something I think I ran from most of my life. I feel like I've always known that I had this like big purpose, but I just didn't know what it was. And it's to help heal humanity one heart at a time through shamanic healing and through poetry. Yeah. Yeah. So I can't really like, I mean, it just happens. I just do it.
Yeah, I'm
I,
just
I
curious.
write on my phone. Yeah, I write on my phone a lot. I always, like my sister and I were in an art exhibit once, and she was like, "Maria, why aren't you taking in the art?" And I was totally taking in everything that was going around me, but I was starting to, take in my surroundings and put them into words that were coming to me. And I feel like that's the muse of an artist. It's like what inspires you, you know? The world is my muse. My experiences are my muse. My partner, the man I live with, he is my muse. My dogs, they're my muses.
Yeah, and I'm
So
asking because I
I
don't have
just, yeah,
yeah, I don't have any of those experiences. That's why I find it fascinating, and I'm trying to
yeah,
understand it.
thank
So I'm
you.
not that's why I'm
Yeah,
asking the
yeah.
questions. I just want to be clear
Yeah,
about that.
no, I get it. No, I'm kind of just like, I don't know, maybe sometimes I'm just like, yeah, like I'm just being me.
Hmm,
It's like the best way to describe it. I'm just expressing myself, and I am a very deep person. I
sure.
speak in a language that not a lot of people maybe understand, which is why, I come across as like different and interesting, and I think that's awesome. If I can like awaken something in somebody else, like what was done for me, then that's beautiful. That's what we're all here to do. I feel we're all walking one another home, to who we are and to the great unknown. This connection. And
What?
that's really what I feel. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What? I was going to ask what that poem means to you, but for
Mm.
us uninitiated, so I'm happy to ask that question. But for us
Yeah.
uninitiated in poetry, what's a good way for us to think about how to interact with poetry? What's a good way to approach it?
Oh my goodness. Like, what does something make you feel? What did you latch onto? What did you get from it? That's mostly what I do when I'm coaching somebody. I'm like, I'm just a reflector, right? Like, what did that do for you? What did you feel about that? What does it mean to you? That's the beauty of art, because I can look at something and you can look at it and we both have totally two different experiences, but it makes you feel something. It makes you
Hmm.
think something. It makes you want to do something. I mean, that's the beauty of art. That's the mystery of it. And it's so I mean, all of people have asked me like, what's your favorite poem? I'm like, oh my gosh, I have like over 800 poems. It's like asking me like, which child is my favorite? I love my both my children the same. And I love all of my poems all have an important message in them. So I just yeah, like that's just about me speaking truth and being who I am. Everything that we're talking about. That's why I knew this poem was going to fit nicely into our conversation because I felt into it before we popped on. And I
Hmm.
said, okay, this one. And that's always how it works. It's so beautiful. Whenever I am sharing or like in a group or on an interview or something, it's it's a reflection of what we're talking about, and that's how they land in my sessions too. I'm like, this is going to match you, this is going to fit you. And every time the person's like, wow, that means so much to me, and I'm like, okay.
Hmm.
Like it's literally my heart's joy to do that. Like, here's something that you can latch on to that's going to mean something to you, that you can take something from. You can learn something about yourself. You can question something. That is what my writing has done for me. It has helped me to heal. And so if it can help other people heal, I mean, I don't have words for that, really. It's so beautiful. Again, that's what I feel like we're all here to do, in one way, shape, or form. Um, we're here to serve one another, we're on this planet together for a reason. So I just, yeah, that's where my heart is. And being truthful, it's like kind of the opposite of like how I've lived most of my life, like hiding in
Hmm.
plain sight. I was so scared to speak and so scared to say things because I was like, are people gonna get this? And it's funny because like a couple of books ago, I give my books to my sons, and my older son was like, "Mom, your stuff's like so deep. I don't get it." And I'm like, "That's okay. Like you'll get it someday, and maybe you won't." But this is. I feel like it sparks something. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. So that's one creative outlet.
Uh-huh.
Um, how did you get from meeting with a shaman to
Mm.
becoming a shaman? What was that experience like?
My goodness. She probably on our second session together, like after that one, she said, "Maria, you are very powerful. You're a very gifted person." And I was like, "Oh, that's kind." Like that's a nice thing to say to somebody. Because at that point I wasn't really believing in myself. And I did know certain things, but I was like afraid of them. I was afraid of like the things that I picked up on other people. And so she was like, take an apprenticeship with me and let me like help you, really we call it like coming into your gifts, like taking on who you are. And that was just life changing again, because it was just such a reflective journey. And there was like, coursework, which is like what I do now with, because I do the same thing for people, and I help them understand themselves in a deeper way. Um, it just really, it's a coming home to myself. It has completely changed my life. It's everything I am. I mean, I'm somebody who, like, if there's a spider in my house, I capture it, I put it outside. I'm very connected and understand that every living thing has a right to be here. And um, I'm very mindful of it. I love everything. Sometimes, like, too much. People would say, like, oh my God, you're so sensitive. But that's a superpower. I've understood, and that's how I describe myself. I use my sensitivities as superpowers. They're not my detriment. They're like my Wonder Woman cape. So yeah, that's how I operate in the world, like I've got to accept who I am. Um, it's I say, like, you're going to be with yourself your whole life. So why don't you become your own best friend and your own hero? And that is what I've learned to do. I think a lot of people in religion are like waiting for somebody to come and save them. Well, guess what? Nobody's coming to save you. We're all here to learn and grow and evolve and be ourselves. That's for me, that's what has saved me. That is what I've watched other people do is empower themselves and accept themselves and go through the things and heal from them. And it's a constant cycle. It's a constant, looking into and it's never over, it's just never over. So yeah, my lifestyle, I live a very minimal lifestyle. I live a lifestyle that, I'm outdoors a lot. I love to be in the sun. I'm really, really grateful to live in Florida because we have a lot of sun here. Um, I've got 5 dogs that I love talking to and I'm really connected to. And um, yeah, I just do the things that I love doing. I dance on a regular basis. I love to, I don't, when I'm not in training right now for any races. So I'm just kind of downshifting, but I move my body every day. I like to do that. It's what drives me. Um, so I just say to people like, find what, find what lights you up. Find like, and keep doing that. Give yourself the gift of yourself, because you have to make yourself a priority. You do. I mean, I'm a prime example of like, I was putting everybody before me. I used to say, if I was in a fire, I would like attempt to put other people out before myself. Well, that's
Hmm.
just like insane. That's just like crazy.
Yeah,
That doesn't
right.
work. That doesn't work like that, Maria. So it's very important for me to check in with myself to really like make sure I'm coming from a centered, grounded place. Um,
Well, it's like when you're on a
yeah.
plane, right? And if the oxygen mask come
Yes.
down, they tell you got to put yours on first so that you won't lose consciousness and you can actually help other people.
Yeah.
So it's a very similar
Exactly. Yeah.
approach. And you had talked about something a little bit ago about
Mm.
nobody's coming to save you. It's one of the things we talk about on the podcast all the time, right? Is you've got to come to terms with the things that you can't change in life. So I'll always
Hmm.
use myself as an example because it's easy and it's doesn't run the risk of offending anybody. So I know it's hard to tell by looking at me, but I'm super Irish, right? And so I
Yeah.
have before I turned gray, I had red hair and I've got freckles and I've always had kind of the feisty temper. Now it's interesting. I never drank. I've actually never been drunk in my life, which is really odd for someone that with the background I had in sports because I was around drugs and alcohol so much that I never tried drugs. And I had maybe a couple sips of alcohol, but I never drank to excess ever, not once in my life. And that's
Mm.
not good or bad. It just is. Those were the choices I
Yeah.
made. It's not a judgment. I'm not better or worse than anybody. But let's just say for a second that, okay, I'm Irish, and the Irish were brought to the United States largely as indentured servants after the Great Potato Famine, and they were treated poorly and blah, 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 blah. So I could bitch and moan and cry about being Irish, or I can embrace, hey, I'm Irish. That means I'm tough. I'm Irish. That means I got a good sense of
Hmm.
humor. I'm Irish. That means I'm resilient. I'm going to embrace the good qualities that I've got and I'm going to make the most out of those in my life. And so people spend a lot of time worrying and thinking about the things they don't have. And it's absolutely
Mm.
useless because you're not ever going to have them. Like if you were born like me, Irish, you don't get to be Puerto Rican or you don't get to be Italian or you don't get to be whatever, insert ethnicity here. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. You are who
Yeah.
you are and you got to make the most of what you do have. You got to spend more time thinking about the advantages you do have than the things that you don't have. And the people that do that tend to wind up in pretty good spots. And the people that don't tend to wind up in pretty bad spots. And I'm not interested in being in bad spots. I'm interested in being in good spots. So I find it very interesting. You can hear the two of us talk, and we clearly take different approaches on lots of things, and that's just fine. I can respect you, you can respect me, and it's clear that we do. But there's so much commonality in there, and that's where we should focus our efforts, right? And that's why we're able to have such great conversations. That's why we're able to interact so well with each other, is because there's tons of commonality in there, and there's authenticity, and there's respect, and there's genuine willingness and wanting to help other people build good lives, and there's a lot of common ground there that's useful, and that's where people need to focus. It sounds like you do a lot of that's a lot of what you do when you, I don't know what you call it, teach, coach, train, heal, whatever you call it, whatever you call
Yeah.
it, is fine.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you do that
Yeah.
with the people you work with.
Yes, whether it's a one-on-one session or if it's somebody who comes into like a mentorship program with me. So I
Mm,
have a lot of different offerings that I do. But really what you're saying, like I'm going to put this in my own words.
please do.
I say I'm living from the inside out. You cannot externalize love. Love comes from within. So if I am looking for like, oh, this, it's no, this is who I am. I'm going to work with what I got. Like I know that my son, my younger son, this is a great example of it because we're both small. Okay, I'm like 5'2". He's small in stature. He came home from kindergarten first day and he said, "Mommy, do you know that I'm small?" And I said, "I do. I'm aware." I say, "Great. Guess what, Miles? Good things come in small packages." And that kid is in the Navy today. That kid
Yeah.
is a Navy man, and he's amazing. And he works on a boat, and he is a mine detector. He detects mines,
Oh,
and
wow.
I just think that yeah, like it's like use what you got,
Yeah.
And he just never. I always did that with both my children. Encourage them to be who they are and use your skills, and yeah, not look for what you don't have. What do you have? I mean, living in gratitude. That was the other thing that helped me in the beginning was affirmations, gratitude lists. Like, gosh, I really see that so many things are working for me. And I think there's just a lot of mixed messaging in the world that makes us think like we need this and that's going to help. And here's this magic pill. There's none of that. Okay. There's none of that, my friends. Let's get real. There's none
Right.
of that. It's all going to come from within you. That's my message. It's going to come from within you.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great message.
Yeah.
You had talked previously in our previous conversation, you talked about a couple of other things too that I want to make sure
Mm.
we're not anywhere close to done. I got lots of questions.
No, that's great. It's great. Let's keep going. What else? What else? Give
You,
it to
you
me,
talked
Sam. Give it
about
to me.
being a yogi and chanting. What do you get out of
Mm.
those therapies, processes, whatever
Mm.
you want to call them? So yogi, meaning you teach yoga, and then you do chanting. What are those like?
Okay, so yogis, we people who practice yoga could refer to ourselves as yogis. I don't teach yoga. I could.
Okay,
I
fair
could
enough.
definitely go through. Yeah. No, I could definitely. I'm just saying to you, I could definitely go through a teacher training, and I've considered doing that in my life, but I really use it as a tool.
Hmm.
I'm here to do and teach other things. And so I've been practicing yoga for 25 years, and it's really just about breathing and moving your body. And we are these energetic systems. We're filled with a lot of water and sound through the chanting. It's like becoming my own human tuning fork. It feels so wonderful for me. Yeah, it just brings me back to myself. When you're humming, that's a small, bigger. It brings, it changes you. There's no way you could chant and be angry. Like I challenge anybody, like start chanting and see how you feel. So yeah, that's it's always been. I mean, I don't maybe consider myself having this like great, beautiful voice, but it's not about that. It's about
Hmm.
just using my own sound. And that again came very naturally. My teacher is not a sound energy healer. She doesn't move energy that way. She moves energy differently, and we all can do that. That again is in our power. And so I will sit over a crystal grid and I will just tone and chant and move energy that way. So the yoga and the sounding just brings so much balance and peace to my body. Yeah. So it's all of it. Like when I was doing my triathlon last year, I would call my Tuesdays my spin yin days because I would do a spin class in the morning, which is like super high intensity. And then I would take a yin yoga class, which is really just being on the ground. It's very slow moving. It's not a flow of poses. It's slow moving, like holding poses, which really helps to stretch your muscles and expand your tissues. And there's all these little fascias, these little, small little squiggly parts of our muscle tissue and things in our body that can finally release when we're breathing and moving slowly. And so it's magic. It's magic. For me, it's been when I found yoga, like that became my religion in a way,
Mm.
like being at the beach. Like I'm again, like I'm so grateful to live in Florida, but I've always been a big water person. I love to be at a beach. And so beach yoga, it's like that's a spiritual experience in and of itself. I just love it. Yeah. It's that connectedness, because when people say, if you don't feel right about yourself in some way, go for a walk, take some deep breaths. Those are big things. So
Yep.
like if somebody calls me and they're like going through something, I'm like, okay, let's take some deep breaths together. Let's get back into our body. Let's feel ourselves. Let's stretch a little bit. Let's get in the sun. It just naturally makes you feel better. There's reasons for that. So I take a lot of time to be adjusting, to where I feel I need to be, whether I need to go for a run or whether I need to like lay down and meditate for 20 minutes. That's another huge thing that I do, and that's part of yoga. The end of yoga is a meditation called Shavasana, and we just lay there in like corpse pose, which is like mimicking, you know, no movement at all, like a corpse. And you just come back into yourself. And that's taken time because I know a lot of people are like, oh, I can't meditate. And it's like, you're just becoming an observer of your own mind. And after a while, all of that goes away and you can find stillness. And it's just, again, it's a muscle, it's a practice. It starts slow. When I started in 2011, that was something that was given to me in the hospital. I was suggested to do guided meditations. And I was like, oh God. And, I've taken that over all these years and learned to just sit quiet with myself. That was something I thought I would never be able to do because my mind would drive me crazy, but mm-mm, no, no.
Mm.
Now it helps me stay connected to my body. So like I say to a lot of people I work with, look at your upstairs here. This is your upstairs. Get downstairs, get in your heart. Come back downstairs. Don't let your mind keep telling you stories because that's what it'll do. Like, thank you, but no thank you. And get into your body. How do you feel? And I believe that's where real change happens, and that connection between the heart coherence, your mind and body together. That is what I do, mind, body, spirit. I'm working on all the wholeness of who you are. Yeah.
So I love I love the breathing part in particular, and another
Yeah.
common point here. So we talked before we came on. We were talking, and I was talking about playing baseball earlier in my
Yeah.
life, and I was a pitcher, and I used to take what I would call a cleansing breath. And when I coached pitchers, I would teach them to take a cleansing breath before every pitch. So I would get the ball back from the catcher, and I would go back onto the mound, and I would stand and face the catcher. And before I did anything, before I engaged, before I took signals, before I did anything, I would take a deep breath in through my nose and blow it out through my mouth. And
Yeah.
I did it before every pitch. And little did I know, we've had several psychologists and therapists and medically trained people. And I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just saying they went to school and studied this stuff and explained why it worked. They said that the deep breathing resets your parasympathetic nervous system and kind of
Hmm.
like brings you back to homeostasis, I guess is the best way to say it. And so you're in a really
Hmm.
good mental place to go do something like throw a baseball 90 miles an hour or whatever it is that you're going to go do. And so I still coach that to this day. I always tell people, like, if you're in a negotiation, let's say you're in a tense conversation, whether it's a negotiation or maybe you're in a disagreement with someone that you're close to, one of the best things you can do when they're talking is say nothing after they're done. Just say nothing for 10 seconds and take a couple of deep breaths. And if it becomes awkward, just say, I'm trying to process what you said so that I can respond in a productive way. And then just let it sit. Just process it in your head, work on the breathing, and you're going to wind up giving a much better and more productive response in those situations than you would if a lot of people have a tendency to do is a knee jerk reaction. They're trying to be right or they're trying to win an argument. And that's not what conversations and relating to people is about. Don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place for that. But I have learned as someone
That's called a debate. That's called a debate, Jeff.
Right.
Yeah, we're not debating anything. You're sharing your experience. I'm sharing mine. That's conversation. Okay,
yeah,
that's what it is.
that's a great way to look at it. I love it.
Yeah, but you're right.
And I was a person that used to do that. That used to be my like, I'm really smart. I'm quick on my feet. I've got a good comeback. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so unproductive. Like it doesn't get you where you want to be. Great. You sounded smart for whatever, 5 seconds. At the expense of somebody else. You've damaged the relationship. You've made it difficult to communicate. What is it you actually accomplished other than egotistically making yourself feel better? Like that's all it does. That's literally all it does. So just shut the fuck up and listen.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
you touched on a lot of things right there. I know that practicing breath work, now yoga is moving breath work, but I also practice conscious breath work, which is
Mm,
breathing in cycles, like and then holding and then releasing. And that ignites DMT into your brain, your own brain chemicals, and you become literally high in your own brain chemicals. And that clears my channel very easily. But it brings you back to a place of homeostasis. People who have had trauma like I have, we're literally walking through life like in a hypervigilant, like clenching.
mm,
So breathing has been huge. Like I notice it when when I listen to interviews, I'm like, oh, I'm breathing there. Because I will. If somebody asks me something, I'm like, and then I'll respond.
sure.
And same, for me growing up, it was like, we lived in such a reactionary family. And it was like, that was so jarring for me because I am sensitive and I want to think about what I want to say. And I don't want to be pushed into doing or being something that's going to be betraying myself. And so I say that to my kids, like, don't you ever let anyone pull you out of your nature because that's self-betrayal. And so think about the things you're going to say or don't walk away. Develop a pause. I feel like I've written an article on this about developing my own pause button.
Mm.
That was huge when I first came into my awakening. I was like, I'm not going to say everything that comes to my first mind. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to be quiet. And like I use that now. Like if I feel like what I can contribute is not constructive or collaborative, I'm just going to keep it to myself. Because it's true. Like we should be as a society, like I mean, another thing I say to people is what is the next loving thing you can do for yourself or for someone else? If we are acting out of love, then you can never go wrong. And so I can relate to that because it's like if somebody says something and it triggers me, I'm like, ooh, wait a minute. Oof, let me look at that before I respond to that. Because maybe what I want to say first is going to be not something I really should be saying or doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it takes slowing down, and breath really helps you to slow down. I've learned that. I've definitely learned that as an adult. Yeah. If I could tell my younger
Yeah.
self to like Maria,
Yeah.
and like be quiet.
Yeah, yours is softer, more diplomatic than mine. I explain to people it's too
Yeah.
bad you didn't know me when I was 20 because I knew everything when I was 20. You didn't even have to ask me. I would just tell you. I knew everything. I know everything. I'm the smartest fucking guy in the world. And now
Yeah.
at 53, I've gotten a lot dumber, it turns out, because I don't know shit. There's like, I don't know nothing. And there's so many people out there. Like, I love our conversation because you're talking about stuff I would never on my own seek out or be exposed to. And I find it super
Mm.
interesting and I'm learning a ton from you. And like, What's the
Yeah.
downside of that? What's bad about that? There's nothing bad about that. It's
Yeah.
only upside. So why would you not want all this information? You've talked several times in our conversation about vibrations and energy.
Mm.
Talk a little bit more specifically about that. How does that present itself to you? What do you see? What do you feel? I have zero
Mm.
experience on this. Whatever gifts you got,
Yeah.
speak to me for sure. And I'm just curious how
Okay.
it works for you.
Okay. So we exist in energy. This is something that's going to become much more out there. It's going to be much more spoken about. It's going to become regular talk. It's not just some woo woo. It's invisible. Yes, we can't see it, but we can feel it. Okay. So energy is everywhere. We are energy. We exist in energy. I say like this, we're in this energetic soup. So when I pick up on vibrations, it's like why feel better with some people and feel not so great with other people. It's
Mm,
all due to energy. It's all due to the vibration that they're giving off. I work really, really diligently to keep my vibration high. Well, what are things that lower your vibration? Fear, anger, drinking, eating really shitty foods. Like those are activities that will bring your vibration down. So, how do I see energy? Well, I see it in different ways. I see it in colors, I see it in symbols. That's the way the universe talks to us. So, if I'm like doing a reading with somebody, it's not going to be sometimes it is like an actual like sentence I'll get through my guides. But lots of times it's symbols. I'm like, oh, I'm getting a lot of flowers. And then we'll start talking about like, I'm seeing you in a field of flowers and like something's blooming or growing or something has been left behind that needs to be remembered to be bloomed. So it's a very complex language to speak in. But yeah, I mean that is the ABC of me. I speak energy. That's why I
mm,
like astrology because it's like the language of energy. We are in a world that is run by elements and we are affected by the planets. And so it's always been fascinating to me about the alignment of things and why we feel the way we do. And it 100% in my belief system is because of the world we live in. So that's why I've always wanted to know about it. Like I want to know about where my planets are and how they align to the energy. And it totally helps me dissect my own self a lot of times. Yeah. And then I meet people and like I want to know like most people I'm in relationships with, like when my kids were born, I was like, okay, I have to do their astrology charts right away. I need to see their charts. I need to like understand their blueprint. I asked my partner when we first, I mean, we've known each other a long, long time, but when we decided to like become romantic partners, I was like, I need to do your chart. You got to tell me like your time of birth and where you were and like, and because that's just who I am. That's how I understand things. So it's pretty
mm,
complex, but that's a pretty basic way of explaining it. It's a feeling for most people, and then there are people like me who are able to see it and to understand it in a deeper way, in a more complex way. Um, and that's also something I can't really explain, like why I do. It's just that's how I was made. That's how God sent me in here. Just being able to pick up on these things, and
mm.
it's wild because I know, like as a younger person, I remember one time my mom had like a friend over the house, and I started telling her things, and my mom's friend looked at my mom and she was like, "How does your daughter know this?" Like, she was like freaked out by me, and I remember thinking like, "Oh God, did I say something wrong?" And my mom's like, "Oh, my daughter's just really special. Like she's intuitive." Which like, oh, okay. Well, but I mean that was also an experience where I was like, "Oh, Maria, maybe some of the things you say are not really welcome." So that's been a lot of my walk is discerning what is for me to share and what is for me just to use for myself. Um, that's very important. I'm not here to disrupt or interrupt other people's journeys. But I am here to share information if that's asked of me, and I can, so I do.
Mm.
Yeah.
Can you see or feel the vibrations and energies? Do you need to be in their physical presence, or can you
No.
like?
Mm-mm. Energy, yeah, and that's how energy works. So when I do a long distance session, I work over the phone.
Mhm,
Um, a lot of people will do like what we're doing, like a Zoom. For
sure.
me, a video is very distracting when I'm long distance with somebody because this technology is an interference.
Mm.
These vibrations, this frequency is like it's taken me a little bit to even get comfortable doing things like this because this is weird for me. I'm having to like now adjust to this energy here with this
That could just be me. I'm
technology.
pretty weird, so that's could
Yeah,
just
no,
be
but like
me.
you also like are very you make me feel comfortable. So it's like it's good. It's good. It's all good. But no, my point is that when I do an energy session over the phone, I just have somebody in my ear and I'm sitting in my office at my altar over a crystal grid with my eyes closed. And that's all I need. If I do a reading, even like longer distance, like somebody wants a tarot card reading and they have an intention. Everything works off the power of intention. So I just tune into that person. I work with their intention and that's it. Sometimes I ask for a picture. It depends on what I'm feeling into. So like I do a lot of elemental healing, so I'm very aware. Like I'm sitting here with crystals. I always have crystals near me,
I
around me, my
saw
whole
I saw
home.
your crystal earlier when you were
Yeah,
moving your hands around. I saw them. Yep. Mhm.
yeah. So my crystals are all over my house. I wear crystals, I've got them on me. They help me ground. They help me to attune my own energy. So when I make a grid for somebody, I like to know their main elements in their own chart and what's going to work with them. And so, yeah, it's just like it's a layering of all of these things that just come to me naturally. um, I've always been able to, I mean, for most of my life. I mean, it's obviously, it's a growing thing. I remember when I first started to be interested in crystals. I think I was, a teenager. I'm a big Grateful Dead fan, so
Mm.
I'm a hippie at heart. That's who I am. I'm one of those like out there people. So of course I would be attracted to crystals and things that smell good. And so it's a layering of all of that. When you work with me, you're going to come into a scent filled room. I'm going to, at the end of our session, write out your intention and we're going to burn it. And I'm going to put herbs into that and we're going to sing and I'm going to chant. And it's just all a building of energy. It's really beautiful. I mean, a lot of people have no words afterwards. They're like, wow, that was something. Because it is, it's gentle, it's very deeply profound. People say that a session with a shaman is like 10 years of psychotherapy in one shot. Because we're going to the core, we're going to the energetic core of whatever you're needing to work on. And we're not just talking about something that's going to like drive the grooves of that pain into your being more, which can at times be releasing, but also it also could be detrimental. So I just offer, yeah, a very different approach.
And how do people wind up finding you? There's not like but I'll just leave it there. How do people wind up finding you? How do you get connected to your
Yeah, people
customers?
find me through my blog, they find me through social media, they find me out in the world. Like I happen to have conversations. I don't, I'm not like, hey, here I am.
Mm.
Because it's a niche, but people find me. Yeah, you can find me on, you're going to share all my links, but I'm at Emotional Musings, which links to my sister site, The Musing Shaman, that has all of my healing services that I offer. And I do work long distance or in person. I work with people all over the world. So that's the cool thing about energy. We don't have to be in the same space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so one of the things I always do is, I think I ask pretty good questions, but I can't hit everything and make sure I get everything. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you want to talk about, or just something that you do want to talk about, regardless whether I've asked you about it or not? I kind of open the floor up to the guests to have their say or direct the conversation. So, floor is yours. What do you want to talk about?
Hmm. What do I want to talk about? I want to talk about the fact that I really feel like we're all seeking connection.
Mm.
And if we're not seeking connection, why aren't you seeking connection? What has happened to you to make you want to pull away from being connected? Because we all are, and that's what's so curious to me. It's always been so curious to me because I feel so deeply. But human beings were built for connection, we're built for community. And I think when something's off within us, it's because we're lacking that. Why are people depressed when they're lonely? Because they feel a disconnection. And a lot of times, I mean, every time it starts from yourself. So I say you can't externalize love. Everything comes from within. And you've got to love yourself in order to love others. That's not just a nice little saying. It's actually really true. And other people that are in my life are like the cherry on top of my already built sundae. I don't look to fill voids with other people or with other things. I do that myself. And everything that comes to me is extra. But yeah, like learn to do that. That's definitely like something I want to just emphasize for people. And it's possible because I'm here.
Mm.
And there's a lot of reasons why I should not be here. 100%. So,
I love that. One of the things we talk about a lot on the podcast is that life is about relationships and experiences. It's not about
mm,
material possessions. It's not about
mhm,
financial wealth. And it's not a judgment. If you like making money, great, go make a lot of money. Good for you. But don't lose yourself along the way and don't lose what's truly important because
mm,
there's not going to be a pile of money sitting at your bedside when it's time to leave the earth. And you can't
mhm.
share a fun experience with a pile of money. And I get it. And look, it's easy for me to
Yeah.
say because I've done well and blah blah blah, but that's not the point. Um, you can't get to where you want to be if you focus on those things. It's the strangest thing in life is that whatever it is that you want to go after, you've got to learn to fall in love with the process that gets you there, not the thing itself, right? So like you found where you wanted to be by going through the process and you looked up and went, holy shit, I'm in a great spot here. But it wasn't, oh, I want to be a shaman and I want to work with people and I want to be an empathetic
Yeah.
healer. And you just
A
did
hundred
because you
percent.
went through the process yourself and wound up in a really good spot, right? So it's one of the things we talk about all the time on the podcast. You got to fall in love with the work, fall in love with the approach, and you'll get to where you want to be.
I love that so much. I was actually just telling a new client of mine, I said, I can tell you right now that there was never 1 second in my life where I said, I want to be a shaman. Never once. Never one time. I wasn't looking to do this. I didn't want any of this. I was like, eh. And it's funny because when I started doing this work and practicing, and of course I wanted to practice on my family, one of my brother-in-laws was like, Maria, I love you, but you're like Obi-Wan Kenobi and you scare the shit out of me. So no thanks. And I was like, fair. Okay. I'll stay in my lane, you stay in your lane. We'll just be like brother, sister-in-law here. And that's great. That's wonderful. Know yourself, know what works for you, what doesn't work for you. That is a-okay. And another thing I want to add about the success part, with my writing and doing this work, I'm able to touch people all over the world. And I don't maybe have the financial success that this world says, like, that makes you best because you have
Mm.
all this money. But my partner led me that the other, like, he has said that to me. He goes, Maria, what's your idea of success? Because my God, you're a success. You are a success. And you've helped people. And so, like, that, take that. That's
That's right.
way more valuable than money. And I'm
You get to
like,
define it. You get to
okay.
define success. You get to define it. The
Yeah.
world doesn't define it for
Yeah.
you. You define it.
Mm-mm.
I was at
Mhm.
a training and I would be
Yeah,
shocked if
yeah.
have you ever seen the movie Tin Cup? I'd be shocked if you've ever seen it.
Yes.
You
No,
have.
I love movies. Listen, this
Well,
girl,
it's a
when I
golf
like to
movie is why I
detach.
asked. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, my dad was a big golfer, and you and I have
Okay.
already shared that my dad was also a catcher. He was a baseball catcher. So
Yeah, right.
sports was something very big in our home, but I actually like to do a lot of like my guilty pleasures, like reality TV. So
Mm.
somebody like me, like I'm very multifaceted. So I like I
Yeah.
like things that maybe people would be like, oh, wow, that's interesting. You like that? Yes, I do.
So there's a
Yeah, but
scene in
Tin
Tin
Cup's a
Cup
good
towards,
movie. Yeah.
yeah, at the very end of the movie, there's a scene for the listeners who haven't seen it. This guy's in a big golf tournament. In fact, it's the golf tournament that's going on right now, the U.S. Open. In the
Oh,
movie,
okay.
he's in the U.S.
Mm.
Open and he's in contention to win it on the very last hole. And there's a shot that he has to hit over water, and it's a really hard shot. And he's like, no guts, no glory. I'm going to go for it. And he hits the shot. It lands on the green, but the green is slanted in such a way that it doesn't stay on the green. It rolls back in the water. And he keeps, instead of going up and dropping and chipping his ball on the green, he keeps trying to hit the same shot over and over again to prove he can hit it, like to prove to himself that he can hit it. And I was at a leadership training one time, and the guy that was doing the leadership training said, uh, the first time he hit the shot, he said, no guts, no glory. He said, how many of you would want this guy on your team? And everybody raised their hand. And then after the guy hit like 4 or 5 shots into the water, it's clear he's not going to win the tournament. Everybody's like, what the hell's he doing? Why doesn't he just go up and drop? He says, now how many of you want him on your team? And I was the only one that raised my hand. And he said, why would you want this guy on your team? And I said, because you can't coach passion like that. You can't coach fearlessness like that. I would rather take someone that's that passionate and that fearless and teach them how to back it down than I would try to teach a bunch of people who are afraid to stop being afraid and go after what we need to go after. I said, I think the first one's a lot easier to accomplish than the second one. And everybody was like, that kind of makes sense. Joe might be onto something here. But it's funny because even as a kid, I've really appreciated excellence in anything, even if I didn't understand it. I loved classical music when I was a kid
Mm.
because the beauty that is exemplified in that music is just like it's unbelievable. And I don't think you need to understand it or be classically trained in it to appreciate it
Mm.
for what it is. And that's why I appreciate you being you. Like I love the authenticity. Like I love that you are who you are. You're unapologetic about it. You want to help people, and you bring a lot of kind of worldly experience to back that up. So you can you can see I do know what that's like because listen to this fucking listen to this fucking story. I know what it's like.
Yeah,
You
yeah. And
know?
I mean, it's a learning to, in order to, to do that, to relate to people, I've had to walk all these different paths, and really get comfortable in my own skin in order to do that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I look at every experience as a blessing. I mean, the things that were really challenging, I'm like, thank God I went through that. I really
Yeah.
am. I'm grateful for my suicide attempt. I'm grateful for a domestic violence situation. Those are the things that woke me up to my own strength and power. And I've taken this pain and I've turned it into power. I choose peace over that pain. And I can relate because I'm a very fiery person. Like I have mostly
Mm,
fire energy within me. And so I've learned temperance, discernment. That's something that I've had to learn
yeah.
because I didn't realize, I mean, I honestly didn't. Like I had certain people say to me, my brother-in-law, who you remind me a lot of, he said to me, Maria, you're so brave. I'm like, really? I'm brave? He goes, yeah. Because you just love Maria and you just keep going and you just keep trying. And I'm like, huh. I look at it as like, I don't want to say no or quit. Like, I just like, it's like, no, I'm like, if I want to do something, I do it. And my older son's just like that. He sets his mind to something. Well, they both are really set their minds to something and you do it. That is passion and drive. That is
Right.
something that when things are not going correctly and I've lost that, that's when I'm concerned.
Mm,
That's when I know something's off because
yep.
I'm a naturally passionate person who just like have had to tell myself that was what I did in the early 2020. I said, anything that really scares me, I'm going to do. And that was getting on a stage and sharing my poetry. That was taking this apprenticeship. That was, name thing after thing. The triathlons. I wanted to, when I went through my divorce, I put myself in a triathlon because I wanted to prove that I could do it, that I'm strong, that I'm not, you know what I mean? Like it's all
Yep.
those things. And I think now it's like, I've done a lot of races besides the three. I've done like tons of, little 5Ks and 10Ks. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to compete with anybody. I'm really just being a better version of myself every day. So I don't need to necessarily prove anything to anybody because I know I can do it. I have that, you know, I decide to do it and I do it. And the last one I did very balanced and I'm very proud of myself these days. The last two I did, well, the first one was completely unbalanced. I mean, I wasn't eating properly and I was
Mm.
drunk. So that didn't work. And it's kind of crazy because I ended first in my age group. So
Right.
that's the mind that's what I was working with, Joe. It was like, look at this girl. Wow. She's got a lot to learn. And then, fast forward all these years later, and I ended third in my age group, and I did it in a really healthy, sustainable way.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna hang up my race shoes. I'm good.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, Maria, we absolutely love having you on the podcast, and I would love to have you on again at some future date. So let's
Yeah.
stay in touch because there's plenty for us to talk about when we get together. And I love your message.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing, and I really appreciate your willingness to come on and share it with all of our listeners. So for everybody out there, before we let Maria go, we're going to include links to all of her things, her poetry, her blog, her healing coaching, her all any way you want to get in touch with Maria to interact with her. So you're not going to have to go out and try to find her. You can just go right down to the show notes and do that, and you can find her there. So really appreciate you coming on, and really really enjoyed our conversation. I learned a ton from it, and I just really look forward to having you on again.
Yes, I love that idea. And if anybody wants to like send in, I don't know how people can do that, like questions or things that they want Joe and I to talk about, I would love that. Oh my gosh, like yes, invitation accepted.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, we'll
That's
put you
so
down and reach out
great.
in a couple of months and we'll do it again.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for listening. And I want to say, enlighten in shadow, always with love. Namaste.
Mm, thank you very much, Maria. Okay, guys, so there you go. Like I said in the intro, Maria just has a great energy and she is such a fun person to be around. We clearly undersold her, if anything. Loved her message and loved her talking about all of the things that she's experienced, the negative things as well as the positive things, because she wouldn't have been led to the positive things without the negative things. And her story of perseverance and her authenticity and her willingness to just embrace who she is has led her to a really good place in life. And we're just very fortunate that she was willing to come on and share that with us. So, just again, Maria, thank you so much. Like we said at the end, we're happy to have her back on. Can't wait to do that. And we certainly will at some point in the future. So, just a great episode, tons to learn in there. So, really glad you were able to check it out. James puts it up over here every day. Don't forget to head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All of our podcast episodes are available there. Links to all our social media accounts are available there. We publish a newsletter every weekday you can subscribe to there. And as always, if you can, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you consume it on. It's really helpful for us if you're able to do that. So you don't want to miss all these awesome guests we have with all this great information they're sharing with you. So make sure you tune in to our next episode. We will see you there.